these two breaking stories involving these lawmakers. John Thomas is a CNN political commentator and Republican consultant. Dave Jacobson is a CNN political commentator and a Democratic strategist. Paige Pate is a CNN legal analyst and a constitutional attorney. Good to see all of you. All right, so Dave, you first. What are your thoughts on Conyers stepping down as ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, and this being now the result of these discussions potentially between Conyers, Minority Leader Pelosi, and members of the Congressional Black Caucus?
I think it's a positive step in the right direction, but it's not enough. If Democrats want to lead the charge forward and be the party and the brand of equality and inclusivity and a safe and healthy work environment, we're the party backing equal pay for equal work. We should also have a zero-tolerance policy when it comes to sexual harassment and misconduct in the workplace. And so I think, frankly, whether it's Conyers or Al Franken, while there's an enormous amount of daylight between them and Roy Moore, these leaders need to step aside because it's a brand issue symbolically for the Democratic Party, and it's tainting our brand.
So, John, you're shaking your head.
Yeah,
Why?
yeah. I mean, Dave's right in the sense of this is a major brand issue. I mean, Frederica, this morning on Meet the Press, the leader of the Democratic Party just called an accused sexual harasser an icon. Next thing she's going to say is, what, is Harvey Weinstein a legendary figure because he gave so much to Democratic figures over the years? No, these are bad people. They have to go. And it seems like the congressman stepped down probably only to cover her tracks after what she said at Meet the Press. But here's the bigger issue, Frederica. Is this moral equivalency of, well, it's not quite as bad as what Roy Moore did, is disgusting, and the Democrats, as of this morning, have completely recused themselves or given up the moral high ground in this sexual harassment debate.
But John, there is enormous daylight. Like, Roy Moore has been accused by 30 or so women, as reported by multiple media outlets, not just the Washington Post, of child molestation. That's very different from sexual harassment.
And that's
many degrees of separation.
Disgusting, and Representative Conyers used our taxpayer dollars to cover up his misdoings. Is that appropriate, Dave?
I'm not saying that what he did was appropriate. I think he needs to step aside. But I think there's a significant difference between that and child molestation.
Frederica,
so Dave, you think he should step aside altogether? You think that this stepping aside as their ranking member on the House Judiciary Committee should be a precursor to, or that eventually it should be leading to John Conyers stepping down as a member of Congress altogether, Dave?
I do think he should step down from Congress. I think the Democratic Party needs to cleanse itself of the taint that is any Democrat who's associated with this kind of sexual misconduct. If we are the party who's going to go into 2018 and campaign against sexual misconduct and campaign against sexual harassment and be the brand and the party of inclusivity and equality in the workplace, then we can't have these figures associated with us as a party.
So John, we actually had former Congressman Barney Frank on earlier, and he thought it was still appropriate that John Conyers would be called an iconic figure because of his history making involvements, whether it be Korean War, as a co-founder of the Congressional Black Caucus. Even Pelosi said he's done outstanding work with the, involving the Women's Violence Act, and that there are a number of involvements involving the civil rights movement that earn him the phrase iconic. But as it pertains to these allegations, Paige, while the Ethics Committee will be looking into John Conyers, also allegations involving Senator Al Franken, does that preclude any possibility of any kind of criminal investigations, even potential civil judgments that would be pursued against at least these two lawmakers as we hear about these allegations?
Not necessarily. I think both on the criminal side and the civil side, it's going to depend on the timing of these allegations. If you have somebody saying something happened 10+ years ago, that type of claim is almost never going to be able to see the inside of a courtroom. In civil litigation and in criminal cases not involving children, very different situation, those claims usually need to be made quickly so that they can be investigated investigated. I think the problem that they have here in Congress, forget the politics for a second, on the legal standpoint, I mean, you hear Ms. Pelosi talking about due process. Well, it's a very convoluted, difficult system to navigate for somebody who's serving in Congress as a staff member who wants to report sexual harassment. And so the problem that we're seeing now is that they're kind of having to do it in the back door. They're waiting years later till somebody's interested in paying attention to it. So if they want to be serious about addressing these problems and keeping it in-house, which is what they seem to want to do, they need to set up a better system to do it.
And you know, Dave, is that now part of the problem, that trying to handle or manage these allegations in an insular way has now, you know, come to the forefront, it's bubbled to the surface, and so people are now saying, is this right? I mean, now we, of course, you know, are hearing there are efforts being put underway to make sure that people get, you know, proper you know, education and awareness on how to deal with, how to identify sexual harassment, and that perhaps this might be a turning point on how to best handle allegations from this point forward.
Sure. I mean, I think Pelosi was right in the sense that earlier today she issued a statement saying that this is a watershed moment. And I do think that members of Congress and staffers, as they go into office, you know, should get proper training to know these are do's and don'ts, right? But I also think there is somewhat of a double standard. This was a topic discussed earlier on Meet the Press, the show that Pelosi was on, where they talk about this dynamic where if you're in business or you're in Hollywood or you're in the media and these allegations come out, you're cut,
There
you're
are
fired
immediate
immediately.
Consequences.
Correct, where there's this double standard with folks who are
But
in
if you're in politics, go ahead.
Precisely. Right, right. And there's sort of this double standard, and we should have our office holder, they should be held to the highest standards, right? These are the folks who we look up to, who lead our government. And so I think this training perhaps is a positive step in the right direction, but I think, and I'm not a policy leader, but I do think that we as a Democratic Party need to come up with comprehensive solutions on how to move the ball forward in a more meaningful way.
Yeah, so then the question becomes, John, from there, why is it different? Should it be different, or should there be uniformity in which what the consequences are and how quickly the consequences may or may not come?
You do need uniformity. I mean, I'll just say it. This process is clearly rigged to defend, to protect the politicians. That's what they've got, whether it's making it difficult for accusers to come forward and make those accusations, having things done behind closed doors. These settlements are able to be made public at the option of the member, not at a public records request. I mean, all of that stuff has to be transformed. And also, I think we need to use the same standards as if we're, it's like we're calling Roy Moore a bad actor, which he is. But he's had a long career of many accomplishments. But I would never call him an icon. You know, the guy's a predator. And we just have to call him that, and we have to call Conyers that, and we have to call Bill Clinton for his alleged rape accusations that. I don't care what legislative achievements they have or have not had.
All right, real quick, Paige. Uniformity on the way? No.
Oh, I don't
Reasonable
know.
to
I
even
mean,
think?
It's Congress, so everybody has their own agenda. But we have seen some legislation, I think, at least drafted and dropped, where they're going to consider coming up with a process that doesn't discourage reports. It actually encourages legitimate reports. Instead of saying, you know, you file it, you give you 30 days to wait, another 30-day cooling off period, and then we stuff it in an envelope somewhere and put it in the drawer. That's not the way to aggressively handle these things if you're going to be serious about sexual harassment.
All right, Paige, John Thomas, Dave Jacobson, thanks to all of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Straight ahead.